So hopefully I got the technology going. Give me just 1 minute. I'm going to make sure that things are moving the way they're supposed to. All right, looks like we are good to go. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm Dr. Megan Graff with Movement RX. Today we are going to be talking about strength training for runners, but also the benefits of running or some kind of cardio for strength athletes. I think a lot of times, there's always negative ideas about both strengthening for runners and doing any kind of cardio as a strength athlete that, either way, it's going to be detrimental to add the other one in if I'm focused on one thing. If I'm an endurance athlete, it's going to be detrimental to be doing any strength training because I get bulky or heavier. It's going to hurt my running. In both cases, depending on, how you're adding it in, if you're not smart about putting it in and your recovery, then yeah, absolutely training on both ends. But just like doing too much running or, not timing certain kinds of workouts properly is going to be detrimental. So first, let's talk about adding in strength training for runners. So why should you even be doing it? One thing, as much as I wanted to believe it as a runner myself and as a PT, it's always been thought like, oh, adding in strength training helps. It helps prevent injuries, which actually isn't necessarily true, but it doesn't hurt. You're not more likely to get injured as a result of doing strength training. It only stands to help improve your running, although not technically for injury prevention. It doesn't hurt to add in. So you're only going to stand to improve, and that includes improved running economy, meaning you're basically able to run more efficiently. So less effort gets you, the same speed or faster. It delays your onset of fatigue. So you're able to go a little bit longer at a certain maybe intensity before you start feeling fatigued. It improves your anaerobic capacity. So generally, we think of, oh, well, especially if I'm doing distance running, like I don't really need anaerobic, meaning, being able to run at max speed, not using oxygen. Well, especially as you fatigue or you need that last little burst of energy at the end of a run, that is where that anaerobic ability really comes into play. So not only having sprint or hill training in your workouts, but adding in strength training is also going to help improve your anaerobic capacity. So especially when it matters, you're going to have improved tolerance to fatigue, as well as, you're able to ultimately perform, when it matters most, when you're really tired. So, other areas too, if you happen to be a sprinter or, your sprint ability is more important, absolutely you should be doing strength training, especially for the same kinds of things I just talked about. But where it's more important for sprinters, you have improved rate of force development, meaning your muscles are able to kick on a little bit more quickly, and your max speed is ultimately improved. So no matter what type of runner you are, you're only going to benefit from adding in strength training. And the next question I always get, or what I also see is not well understood by runners, is how to add it into your week. So typically, a lot of runners are adding in their strength training on their easy run days or their days off from running. But this is actually really, I wouldn't say very detrimental, but you're not maximizing your recovery and you're not maximizing the gains that you could be making. Because if you're running hard 2 to 3 days a week, so say you're doing 1 day of speed work, so you're doing sprint intervals, another day you're doing a threshold run, so kind of sub-maximal, but still hard effort. And then another day you're doing a long run, that's 3 days of hard running. And then you're gonna do potentially 2 days of strength training. It's another 2 days of higher intensity. So 5 days of the week, you're doing some kind of high intensity. So your body is actually not going to be recovering well if you're doing your strength training on your easy days. So what's actually better is to do them on the same day as your hard runs. So say you do your speed work on Mondays and a threshold run on Thursday, I would say those should be the days that you're also doing your strength training. But because if running is your priority at that time, say you're training for a race or you're just primarily a runner, but you want to be doing strength training, then you should do your hard run first and then do your strength activity to maximize performance on both ends and ultimately to maximize your recovery. You should wait at least 3 hours after your hard run before you do a strength workout. But if you, if just timing works out that you need to do a strength day separate, you should wait at least 24 hours before doing a hard run workout. So as much as you can, trying to give your body time to recover, but that's how to add it into your week. So regardless if you're running 3 days a week or 5 days a week, try to match up your hard days. So that way your easy days are truly easy and your rest days are truly a rest day, because your body needs to be able to recover. And if you're essentially going hard 5 days a week, you're not going to get that. So, for runners, I am a huge proponent of adding in strength training. You're going to end up being more efficient. You're going to feel stronger in your runs, especially adding in single leg strength exercises, and doing things like split squats or, in other words, lunges, things that are a little more similar to the mechanics of running. And then, running is just a single leg jump over and over and over again, basically. So being very strong on one leg and balance and core strength is going to be huge, because that helps with improved energy transfer, which is something I talk a lot about with my strength athletes as well. The better able you are to transfer energy from the ground, the faster you're going to be able to run with less effort. And then for my lifters, it's the same thing. The better you're able to transfer energy from the ground, the easier it is going to be to move weight. So when it comes to my lifters, for adding in running, both CrossFit athletes and weightlifters especially, I get it, generally hate running. So there are other forms of cardio that you can be doing that are still going to be beneficial. But one study that I thought was really interesting showed that running, you burn a lot more calories than you do other forms of cardio. So in a study, they found if a 200-pound man goes running at 5 miles an hour, he will burn 755 calories in an hour. That's almost 50% more than he would burn if he did an hour of swimming or an hour on the rower. And then if he goes up to 6 miles per hour, which is a 10-minute mile, so what I think a lot of people would consider on the easier pace end of things, it goes up to 917 calories per hour. The only thing that beat out, amount of calories that would be burned in an hour at 5 miles an hour of running was stair climbing. So stair climbing is another beneficial activity that, I think can be good, but more often than not, people tend to do a little bit too high intensity on that. So chances are, if you were to try to do stair climbing for an hour, that would be really challenging. Likely, getting to where your heart rate is just as high or pretty similar to if you were doing a CrossFit WOD, or if you were doing maybe a little bit more steady state in your lifting and not giving yourself as much rest time if you were trying to get cardio that way. Ultimately, when you lift or you're doing a Metcon, you're operating at 80+% of your max heart rate. And ultimately, when you are always, like when any cardio you do is at that level, then essentially your heart is beating very, very fast, but it's not efficient at fully filling and therefore pumping blood out into the rest of your body. So you end up getting tired faster. Your body is not getting as much oxygen as it could be. So what has been shown is that by adding in some steady state cardio, it actually helps improve your body's ability to pump blood, which ultimately improves your recovery between sets. So if you're more focused on powerlifting or weightlifting and you're doing your heavy set and giving yourself 2 to 3 minutes of rest or however long you're getting, your body is going to recover more quickly in between sets. But ultimately, adding in some cardio is going to help with your recovery from session to session. So adding in 2 to 3 days a week of easier running, meaning your heart rate shouldn't get above 60 to 70% of your max, which you may not be tracking that or know how to keep track of that in a run. But ultimately, you should be able to tell somebody your life story if you were out on a run with them. So that's how easy you should be running. I think that's part of why anaerobic athletes or strength athletes hate running so much, is because every time you do it, you're going all out. And so, yeah, it sucks when you run so hard that you're completely out of breath and you feel just wiped out at the end. So, the nice thing is, like, if you can go out with somebody and, try to carry on a casual conversation, just taking it very, very easy, like challenge yourself to go obnoxiously slow. And that's where you should be. One, it's also going to help with fat burning. So if you feel like with your strength training, you've been able to add muscle bulk, but you're having difficulty burning fat, if you're working in that very low steady state cardio, you are burning fat rather than tapping into your carbohydrate stores. That being said, when it comes to calorie burning in general, it's going to be HIIT training, or what you can consider metabolic conditioning or higher intensity training, that is going to ultimately burn more calories. But that's where I think having a balance of a little bit of both in your week as a strength athlete can go a long way, especially if you are potentially looking to lose fat. If maybe you're also into any kind of like figure competition, doing that. But ultimately, when it comes to calorie burning, adding in a little bit of the higher intensity running can be helpful too. So biggest benefits, improved recovery. If you're looking for increased calorie burn or fat burning, it is going to help with that. But overall, as a human being that needs to have a healthy heart, it is important to be getting some cardiovascular exercise in at lower levels. So maybe that is, a hike where you're getting your heart rate up a little bit, kind of thinking steady state. So, at a minimum, shoot for 20 to 30 minutes 3 times a week. But, I would say up to 2 times a week of even 60 minutes. And it doesn't have to be running. If you're very against it, or you have issues that running can be painful, or you just don't feel like you're good at it and maybe it hurts more than it helps. Whatever form of cardio you feel like you can do, but no matter what you're doing, you should be able to pass that same talk test. So if you're on the elliptical or the bike or swimming, I mean, it's going to be kind of hard to talk while swimming, but you get the idea of effort level. It should be fairly easy, able to talk through it. And so, adding that in, it's going to improve your recovery, but the biggest thing is it helps your heart health as well, and it makes your heart more efficient at pumping blood, which is going to tremendously help out your workouts, especially if you are doing Metcons and CrossFit. It's really going to help your endurance throughout those workouts. And then the other thing to think about too, especially when it comes to CrossFit and sometimes even with different lifting workouts, is that with repeated bouts of anaerobic effort, so again, those fast efforts where you need a lot of power, we're using those energy systems that, that you're training when you're doing strength, workouts or when you're doing CrossFit. But the more of those you do, so say each round of an AMRAP, or possibly even certain weightlifting workouts, if you're not getting as much rest, then we start to shift to our aerobic system. So if your body is not efficient at using oxygen, which it gets to be efficient through doing aerobic training, particularly running and other steady state cardio, then you're going to have a much harder time in those later rounds. So ultimately, it's going to help your performance, again, especially towards the end of the workout. So adding that in is going to be really beneficial. But when it comes to knowing, okay, should it be steady state versus HIIT? You know, there's a lot of information out there about, you know, steady state cardio is the devil. HIIT workouts, you know, are better for you. Like I said, there's benefits to both. So HIIT workouts, it has been shown to improve power output. So it is going to be really helpful for strength athletes. And ultimately, again, is going to improve endurance. So if you do have those longer workouts, it is going to help you, especially towards the end. And like I said, improved calorie burn. But the slower, steady cardio shows to help with blood lactate removal. So again, it kind of helps with recovery throughout a workout is a way you can think about that. Improved VO2 max, so how well your body is able to use oxygen in your workout right then. And ultimately, I think the biggest thing for strength athletes is that it's decreased load to your nervous system, which sounds a little woo-woo, but when it comes to hard strength workouts, your nervous system is working in overdrive to help you move that heavy weight because everything is having to work to stabilize, to drive that movement. It is very, very taxing to your nervous system. So if you're also adding in high intensity runs for your cardio, that's another high load to your nervous system that ultimately is going to be very detrimental to your recovery and therefore your performance if you're doing a lot of it. So ultimately, in summary, for strength athletes, the way that you should add in cardio that's only going to serve to help your training is doing 2 days a week of running on your off days from lifting, or if say you're lifting 4 or 5 days a week, then adding in the run days on your easy days or your lighter days, and do anywhere from minimum 20 to 30 minutes up to 30 to 60 minutes of that easier level. I can have a whole conversation type of intensity. And then for 1 day a week, and this can be after, again, I would say a relatively light to moderate strength day, do this right after lifting, do a HIIT workout of 8 rounds of 10 to 30 seconds of effort. I would start in the 10-second realm if you're not used to adding in sprints. So do shorter duration, give yourself 1 minute of rest in between each. So do that 1 day a week, you know, especially including warm-ups, maybe going for a light jog or even 5 or 10 minutes on the bike, and then getting into the sprint effort. So 10 to 30 seconds, 8 rounds, 1 minute of rest. Do that 1 day a week after a strength workout. And ultimately, that's going to be really, really helpful for your training. And then when it comes to improving recovery, doing the steady state cardio is going to help you from session to session. And like I said, how your body improves in between sets. But when you think about how maybe tired or beat down your body feels after hard strength days, going for a super easy run can be really helpful. And maybe even doing a little walk jog, plan to go for a 60-minute walk, but do little bouts of 1 to 2 minutes of jogging in the middle that you're taking it really easy. And ultimately the whole thing, you should actually feel a little bit energized or feel a little bit better after having gone out and done that, not like, oh, I just beat myself down even further and I was already feeling kind of worn out and beat up after my strength workout. So no matter what type of athlete you are, you can both benefit from running and strength. And I would argue, you know, it's going to make you a better athlete, regardless of what your primary sport is, whether it's strength or running. And, you know, it's really, really important to add it in. And so having that balance is huge, but the biggest piece on both ends is maximizing your recovery. what I mean by that, like I said, is optimizing your rest days. So regardless if you're strength or runner, or you do both, making sure that you have a healthy balance of the easy days are truly easy. It's more of active recovery, whether you're lifting or running. Just basically getting your body moving, get your blood pumping a little bit, but you're not overloading your nervous system and you're not going hard 5 or 6 days a week. Everybody's a little bit different on what optimal rest is for them. But a couple ways to be tracking that. If you happen to have a heart rate monitor, you can track your heart rate variability. That's a good way of knowing how well your body is recovered from day to day. You do need to get a baseline. There's different apps and things that you can use to track heart rate variability. But that's a really great measure of how your body is doing day to day. If your heart rate variability is consistently lower than it had been, especially after a few hard efforts, it's a good indication that you need to back off and give yourself a few more days, both break from running and lifting, or possibly just super easy efforts for a while, and making sure that you're sleeping well. I think sleep is a hugely underrated aspect of our training. A lot of times we skip on sleeping in order to get to the gym to lift or to get out for a run. And I would argue, ultimately it's probably going to serve you better to get a little extra sleep and a little bit less of the workout when it comes to getting good quality performance out of that workout. And then, ideally, if you're able to nap, naps are great for recovery, but, really prioritizing your sleep and making sure you're getting in bed at a decent hour and you're not BSing around before bedtime that ultimately you could have gotten 8 to 9 hours of sleep, but you played around on your phone or you're watching TV or whatever it is. Like really making sleep a priority, especially if you want your performance to improve. You want to be getting the most out of your workouts. That is number one thing. And then beyond that is making sure that you're resting appropriately from day to day throughout your week. So the other piece, if you don't have a heart rate monitor to be monitoring both your heart rate during workouts or your heart rate variability, the other thing that you can be doing is just testing your resting heart rate in the morning. So the good old test of just feeling it at your neck or feeling it at your wrist. You can test it, count the beats for 15 seconds and then multiply that by 4 and do that before you get out of bed in the morning. So that's your resting heart rate. It might be helpful to keep a little log or a journal next to your bed and track that over time, because typically resting heart rate correlates with your heart rate variability, and that when your resting heart rate in the morning goes up, typically that's an indication that your body is still recovering. So if you're seeing that trending to going up, or it's consistently been really high after a few hard days and you're kind of feeling it too, that you're pretty beat down, then you need to back off and really let your body recover. More is not better when it comes to training. So, again, running 5 days a week and doing 3 days of strength training, so you're doing a bunch of 2-a-days, like it's not, ultimately that is probably going to hurt you more than it's going to help you. So really listening to your body, that's going to help keep you from getting injured. A lot of times we kind of push through those little nagging discomforts because we're not recovering well, we're ignoring our body, we're going too hard. So always, always, always paying attention to your body. Be smart about your training and about your recovery, and you're going to be a much better runner or lifter, or both if you're like me and you really enjoy both. And there's huge benefits to having both as a part of your week. So that is all I have to talk about with that. If you have any questions, I'm going to stay on for a little bit longer if you have any questions. But if you want to learn more about our programs that we offer online, if you're a runner and you don't really know where to start when it comes to strength training, we have a lot of really great programs available online. especially if you've been dealing with any injuries or things in the past with your lower back or your knee, and it's kind of kept you from wanting to get into strength training. I apologize for the noise. I believe there's a helicopter flying outside. If any of that has kept you from getting into a strength program, say every time you try to start squatting and you're doing it for a week or two, it starts to bother something. We have really great programs available, and our membership plan gives you access to all of us. So myself and some of our amazing fitness coaches that are available for, you know, asking questions about the program, giving you support along the way. And, you know, that's not something that if you just pick a strength program online and you have to work through it and figure it out and you don't even know if you're doing it right, having access to us every week real time is huge when it comes to you know, getting back into a program and feeling really confident with it. And same thing, you know, if you're a lifter and you don't know how to get started with running, but you recognize the benefits of it and you want to chat more, we, like I said, with the membership, you have access to me in our open Q&A session that's available every week for people to log on and ask their questions. Or, you know, we're doing virtual sessions that, you know, we're able to spend time talking about any injuries you've maybe dealt with, things that are specific to you, and the best way for you to go about getting back into training, whether you're a runner or a strength athlete. And there are discounts on those virtual sessions when you're on our membership platform. So go to our new fancy website. It looks so awesome. I'm so excited that we have that out and available for you guys now. It is live. So check us out at www. I guess you don't really need to put that in anymore, but I felt the need to say it, movement-rx.com. So thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you guys next week.